Do you ever get overwhelmed when you start to learn new music? Do you open up the sheet music and think to yourself, how on earth am I ever going to be able to do this? If so, you are not alone, but do not fret. Today, I am walking you through a 4-step process that is going to help you streamline improving your reading skills. This will take you from overwhelmed and frustrated with reading music to confident in your ability to improve this important skill. Be sure to stick around until the end because I'm sharing something brand new that you're not going to want to miss. First things first, start with music that's at your level. And I mean at your reading level, not at the level of music that you're learning, not at the level that you think is what you should be learning. Music that is matched to your reading level. Listen, this is not the time for pride. Do not be trying to think big and strive for really big, lofty goals here. This is something that you need to improve in an incremental way. If you're willing to accept where you are and start with music that's well matched to your level and practice sight reading every single day, you're going to make progress faster than you think. And I want you to remember, this has nothing to do with your actual playing ability. I really need you to hear me when I say this because I went through exactly the same thing. I was an atrocious sight reader as a student. You probably don't believe how bad I was. I promise you, I really was that bad at sight reading. And I tried working on it, but the music that I was given to improve my sight reading skills was just 10 levels too difficult for me and my reading skills at that point in time. I was struggling to sight read children's songs even though I was able to learn and master extremely virtuosic music. So it's not about any sort of abilities except your reading abilities. Be willing to start on a simpler level than you think you need to. We'll circle back around to how to find music that's well matched to your level later on in this video. So again, be sure to stick around. Step 2, look before you leap. You need to scan through your music and see what you're up against before you ever play a single note. Now, some teachers will encourage you to actually set a timer and to not play a single note until you've scanned through your music for at least 1 minute or 3 minutes or even 5 minutes. Some teachers say, I'm not actually under any impression that you're going to do that and really stick to it on a daily basis. So I have a much simpler system for you. If you keep a notebook at your piano or if you have some post-it notes, I would encourage you to jot these 5 things down so that you have them right there as a visual reminder every single time you go to practice sight reading. Now, if you don't write these down, it is 5 things so that you can at least just kind of count through your fingers and help you keep track of what these 5 things are. Number 1, check the time signature. Is your time signature 4/4 time, 3/4 time, 2/4 time? Just notice because you need to be counting and you need to know how you're measuring the music you're going to be playing. If it's anything besides those 3, unless you've been playing piano for well over a year, I would encourage you to find some simpler sight reading material. Second thing, key signature. Do you have any sharps or flats? Again, if you haven't been playing piano all that long, it's better to start out in C major or A minor, so no sharps, no flats in the key signature. But if there are a few, you can still deal with it. You just need to keep in mind exactly what those notes are as you're sight reading. And then with the third question, we're moving into the notes themselves. So what are your starting notes? Is it just one hand at a time or both hands playing together? Check that starting note or notes and figure out which finger will be playing each note. And once you've established that, I want you to scan all the way through the entire excerpt. In the beginning, this shouldn't be more than 2 to 4 lines. It shouldn't take you very long to do this. And I want you to be checking, is the music going up, down, or staying the same? And are there any intervals that you should be keeping in mind? If you don't know what intervals are, then I want you to be keeping things really basic, really simple, and refer to this video to learn more about intervals and landmark notes, which will also be very helpful. And finally, after you've scanned through the entire piece, I want you to go back through one more time and notice what rhythms you see. You don't need to count and clap the entire excerpt. You can if you want to. It's an outstanding practice step. It's really good for establishing your rhythm and your pulse. I'm not going to tell you you have to do it because a lot of you won't, and I'm willing to accept that. You do need to be keeping track of the rhythm though. So look through it, scan through, see if it's mostly quarter notes, half notes, whole notes. If you're just starting out with sight reading, it should be mostly those kinds of notes, maybe a few 8th notes thrown into the mix. But again, if you're new to sight reading, 16th notes really don't have a place in your excerpts. You need to be starting with something simpler. Now, I keep mentioning ways that you can simplify sight reading and that you need to be starting with simple materials. And I really want to double down on that really quickly before we move on to the next step. because every single element that you add into your sight reading process, whether it's more complicated rhythms or playing hands together or adding more notes or bigger intervals. Each of those things is just a quantum leap in your reading skills if you're not prepared for it. If you go through these steps, if you practice this skill every single day, you're going to get there faster than you may imagine, but you have to commit to going through this really systematically and learning these things in a specific order. Again, as long as you're consistent and committed to learning how to improve your reading skills and not just sitting down and blindly kind of hacking away at things, you will be making progress on a daily basis. I have prepared a free PDF for you, so you can download that at the link that's listed in the description below. And it has this checklist for you so that you can print it out and keep it at your piano, and 7 days of sight reading material that stick to the really basic elements. You may think they're too easy, but if you go through them with the 4 steps that we're learning today and practice them really every single day in the way that I'm telling you to, you're going to notice improvements in your reading skills. Step 3, count 1 or 2 measures before you start playing, and then keep counting. I know that not everyone loves counting out loud, and I kind of just point blank refused to count out loud for several years until I realized that I could actually solve all of my rhythm issues at the piano if I would just swallow my pride and count out loud while I was practicing. This is a skill that you have to learn and that you have to implement with patience. And it's sort of like playing hands together, except playing hands together at the piano is not really negotiable. You want to be able to play those pieces that need both hands at the same time, and so you're willing to commit the time and effort to making that happen. Counting while we practice is very similar, especially while we're reading. It doesn't seem non-negotiable, and so it's very easy to just sort of drop it and let it fall by the wayside. But if you commit to mastering counting while you play, it will bolster your sense of rhythm and your sense of pulse like nothing else that's available to you. In the beginning, you do not have to be counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 the entire time. If you take your excerpts and you practice naming the direction that the music is moving, that's actually a really great way for training your eye and your understanding, and it's supporting your entire learning process. And by doing this, then you can do something. You can count the measure before you start. So you count 1, 2, 3, 4, C, same, up, 2, down, skip, down, same, down, 2, 3, 4. For example, something like that. It keeps you thinking in terms of direction, which is essential when we're reading music. And it's helping you keep track of the rhythm because then you're just filling in anything that's longer than a quarter note with the counting, and that is also enough to get you there. And then if you're willing to play through the excerpts a second time, then you can name the notes, because we actually need both. We need directional reading and understanding intervals, but also identifying the specific notes. So then you could try something like saying the note names. So again, you count the measure before you start. 1, 2, 3, 4, C, 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 D, E2, D2, C, E, D, D, C, 2, 3, 4. And from there you can go to just regular what we call metric counting. So 1, 2, 3, 4 over and over again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. In that way, you get the full benefits of each of the options and the additional reading practice and this ability to sort of flip a switch while you're reading, and just practicing each of those options intentionally can only be a benefit. Give this a try in your practicing this week and let me know if it helps. Step 4 is keep going no matter what. Listen, I don't know what you've been told about sight reading. I don't know what your assumptions are about sight reading, but sight reading is not about perfection. So if you make a mistake, don't stop. Just keep going. I know this is easier said than done. I know that we want to prove that we understand what's going on, but listen, piano playing is so much more than about understanding. Understanding what we need to do at the piano is very simple. Looking through the music and naming the notes before you play is also fairly simple. It's not that difficult to go through and name a list of notes without sitting down and playing them. But bringing everything together is a very different story. And so If you understand what's happening in the music and you understand when something's incorrect, that's enough actually. Now, there is a certain benchmark that we want to hit. I would like to see you getting 80% to 90% of those correct and the rhythms. So if you can play an excerpt with 80 to 90% accuracy, that's good enough. You can just keep going, you don't need to stop. If things really start to unravel and you start to have a lot of trouble, then you're probably going too fast. If you've done the scanning, you've looked through the things before you sit down to play, like we talked about, and you counted yourself in before you started, then, and you're still making lots of mistakes, then you're probably going too fast or your excerpt is too difficult. I know this is easier said than done, but you will never become a fluent sight reader if you don't train yourself to keep going no matter what happens. If you're terrified of making mistakes, if you're hesitating before every second note or every second measure or every second line, you're never going to develop the fluidity in your reading that you need. And this is not just about training yourself to let go of mistakes. It's also about training your eye to keep moving forward, which becomes increasingly important as you start to learn more complex music, because there's more information and you need to be able to look ahead and see what's coming before you actually get there, so that your hands know where to go, you know what to do, and you're interpreting everything on the fly. Just like when we're reading in any language, you don't read letter by letter, you don't even read word by word, you start to sort of scan ahead in the sentences, and that's exactly what we need to get our eye to do when we're sight reading at the piano. And again, if we're constantly stopping and allowing the space for that, for those hesitations, you're not going to develop the fluidity you want in your reading. Slow down, take your time, but keep moving forward. If you're going to try out these methods, share this video with a friend and challenge them to improve their sight reading skills too. And that's it. That's the whole system. Those are your 4 steps. Find music that's suited to your level, look before you leap, count before you start, and no matter what happens, just keep swimming. If you do this for just a few minutes every single day, you will develop these skills so quickly and with such an assuredness of what you're doing. You will know how to break down any piece of music and how to approach that, because you're developing these skills step by step. You're starting with really basic materials and just working in small challenges along the way, so that after 30 days of sight reading, after 60 days of sight reading, you're going to be farther along than you realize. Now, I promise to help you find music that's suited to your level for sight reading, and basically it all comes back to that benchmark that I mentioned before. Being able to sit down, do a simple scan of what's in front of you, and play fluently with at least 80% accuracy. If you aren't able to hit that benchmark, even after slowing down, even after repeating the scan and double checking that you kind of saw the important elements, then it means that the material is too difficult. And really, I would love to see everyone commit to practicing at least 4 weeks of just really simple sight reading material that is primarily hands separately or switching back and forth between the hands, because if we really iron out the basics, if we really iron out learning to read intervallically, learning to read based on direction, and using landmark notes as a support system, if you go through each of those steps, which I'll talk more about in depth next week, and you can also check out this video for a little more information. If you commit to doing that for a few weeks, you're going to develop the essential reading skills that will help you develop into a really reliable sight reader in the long run. And don't let me suggesting that you go to simple music discourage you, because this is not about what we're able to learn at the piano with studied practice. I was playing Chopin etudes and Liszt Hungarian Rhapsodies, and I was at a Christmas dinner at my school, and I was supposed to sight read Jingle Bells when Santa Claus came out with the presents for the senior citizens dinner, and essentially fell flat on my face. One of the most embarrassing moments in my life. It's not about your playing level, it's not about your level of musicality or musicianship or pianistic skill or any of that. It's just about your sight reading level, and you have to master this skill bit by bit. And if you practice this in this way, every single day, you're going to grow so much faster than you even realize is possible. So again, there's a link in the description for a free PDF that will give you 7 days of sight reading materials, walk you through the essential steps here. Be sure to subscribe and ring the bell if you haven't already, because next week there is even more sight reading goodness coming for you. And if you have questions about intervals, you can check out this video. And if you get through those 7 days and you want more material, I am just about to open the doors to my brand new sight reading club. Basically, every single week there will be new PDFs uploaded that will give you another 7 days of sight reading material, and it's all structured based on what I've seen over the years of the essential elements that we need to be approaching as we're learning to sight read. It's really graded very gradually. You're going to be working step by step, because really one of the biggest issues when it comes to learning to sight read and improving our sight reading is just knowing what on earth do I work on when we sit down, because we run out of material very quickly. And once you've read through something a couple of times, you're not really getting the benefits from that material anymore, at least in terms of sight reading. Then you're just improving your skills at the piano in other ways. You're memorizing the music, you're learning music, it's moving your fingers, you're getting things done, but it's not really reading practice anymore because it's familiar material. If this video helped you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with a piano friend. And if you're looking for more sight reading goodness, you can check out this playlist right here. Until next time, happy practicing.